All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad that I can see some familiar faces on here. Today we're going to be discussing when and where and why to hire offshore or to consider hiring a VA or in-house. I think a lot of us have maybe some misconceptions or have had some bad experiences. Hopefully not too many, but today what I want to go through is just the reasoning or the rationale behind hiring a VA, and really kind of discovering where they could be useful for you and your business, and helping you to save time and make more money. So let's go ahead and hop right into this. I'm going to share my screen. And let's roll. So the biggest problem that I see as a consultant and working with everybody here, mostly, and working with lots of other contractors, is time, right? The reality is a lot of contractors retain doing everything themselves out of fear or lack of knowledge of how to delegate it. Okay. So, if we're spending 10 to 20 hours on administrative tasks, which if we really did your time audits and you were to analyze where your time is going, you're going to find out most likely that at least 10 hours a week are going towards administrative tasks. All right. And on top of that, because you're so busy, we lose leads, we lose revenue opportunities, we miss, doing quotes because we're getting caught in the weeds. All right. And what stops us from making the logical decision is a couple of things. Number one is not being really clear on what it is that you should delegate, not having a clear understanding of where your time is actually going. Again, if I ask most of you right now what you did 3 weeks ago at 2 o'clock, I'm pretty sure that no one would really remember that, would they? Right? So, a lot about, being able to delegate is to understand, first of all, the value of your time. Okay. So if you're here, I can safely say that nobody here would be less than 200 bucks an hour. All right. On paper. Like that is the value you bring to your business. And what is tough to see, and I know, I've been through it. I think everybody's been through it. I still go through it. I'm not immune to it. Is that we have this reactive decision making, where we want to put out the fires. We want to make sure things get done, and we forfeit our time. And I bet you even today, all of you guys can probably say that you've done a 20 or 10 or $20 an hour task, right? For sure, right? And I have too. So again, I'm not immune to this. What I want you to again be aware of, and the more you're aware of it, it makes it easier to make these transitions. Is again knowing that your time's worth $200 an hour, and stopping that subconscious reactive. I got to get it done. I got to do everything. Get that out of your head. What I'd love to see you do is when you catch yourself doing a task that you feel is a 10 or 20, 40 and 50 even for some of you. Okay. 75, 80 might even be the range depending on where you're at. I want you to write it down. Okay. I don't need you to put anything to it. All right. But keeping track of these things, all right, will often lead to the answer that you need to come to conclusion on. And that's delegation. Okay. So let's go through some of the things that, you probably are going to find yourself doing most often. So how many of you guys are answering calls or booking jobs? Out of curiosity, maybe just throw a chat one in the chat for me. How many of you guys are doing that? Okay. All right. Following up with clients, invoices and reviews. Yeah. Okay. Scheduling and calendar management. How many of you guys have someone managing your calendar for you, or are you doing it yourself, or not managing a calendar? I can tell most of the people that are late that that's probably you. Okay. Invoicing and payment collections. Okay. Material ordering and vendor coordination. Okay. Social media and lead follow-up. All right. Seeing a lot of ones here, guys. All right. So those are just a few of the obvious tasks. So there are so many more layered on top of that in terms of coming to having a business that is able to operate without you, right? So just those top line things right there, if you put any more than, maybe two or three ones, you already have this issue. Okay, you should already be thinking about how do I get this off my plate? Because the truth is that's what's robbing you of your profit. All right, that's what's robbing you of your time with your family, and that's what's making you sometimes make reactive decisions and feel burnt out and feel overwhelmed with your business. Okay, they don't seem like those things don't seem like they're doing harm, but they are. All right, and harm in a lot of different ways. So how many of you guys have had this experience where, you've been caught doing administrative tasks, perhaps doing invoicing collections, and then suddenly, you're in a conversation with a customer to close a deal and you don't feel like you're you're clear. You don't feel like you've shown up and possibly lost that sale. Didn't have the right answers, didn't show up for your customer. Okay? So I want you to think about that moment because I know this is what really helped me to kind of get over some of these things is, realizing that, losing, potentials for 10, 15, $20,000 in profit for the business, overdoing too much myself, all right, was not only making me miserable and taking away from other things in my business, all right, but it was actually traceable. It was trackable back to a single like back to what I was doing with my time, right? And here's the other side of it. How many of you guys feel like your team doesn't delegate well? Your team doesn't show up and isn't practicing good leadership? How many of them feel like they're very dependent on you? Okay. My experience with this is when I fixed my time problems and I learned to delegate and I learned to lead people rather than task people, okay, everything changed. You will start to attract other leaders to your business. Okay. So again, when we're looking at the big picture here, um, how many of you guys think that the CEO of, I don't know, let's say Home Depot. How many of you think that he's answering calls and booking jobs or talking with, okay, any of these things? All right. Of course they're not. Their whole day is planned out and scheduled around big level things. Okay. And that's what good CEOs do is they move those small things off their plate and get them down, down to people that are better suited for doing them. Right. So let's talk about one of the big hurdles that we have is the quality of VAs. Okay, so has anyone here actually hired a VA before? Yep, Mario, and how was that experience? Maybe unmute yourself for a sec.
Um, I had two or three of them, and not like none of them really worked out long term. And I take full responsibility for that, for not being prepared enough to ask them exactly what I want from them.
Gotcha. And again, I'm sure most of you guys are experiencing this with anybody you're hiring, to help is oftentimes we run into the situation where we don't know what to actually assign to them. Right? We don't know what to actually give them to do. All right. And in a lot of cases, what is happening is you're actually hiring the wrong person for that position. Okay. So let's kind of talk about, where we could possibly find VAs. Now, as a as a word of caution, um, unless you have a very good system for managing VAs, all right, these platforms that I'm going to recommend for you, would be difficult to be successful in, okay? To say the least. Unless you're really prepared for them and you have a way to manage them. Upworks, Fiverr, Freelancer, on Jobs.ph. And again, there is a pretty big group of VAs out there, but they come untrained. Okay, so I want you to keep that in mind. Is they don't have, in a lot of cases, they probably haven't even worked with contractors. You're getting a very broad, very somebody that's maybe not knowledgeable at your business. Maybe they don't have good English skills. So again, you have to put a layer of expectation there that is realistic, right? So a couple of things to keep in mind. We have to make sure that they have good English and communication skills. So And especially if they're going to be answering phones, especially if they're going to be interacting with clients or vendors or anything like that. The last thing you want is to have someone that's, maybe not not very good at English, like talking to a customer. Okay. That doesn't mean that you may not be able to utilize them in other areas. Okay. But that's probably not the greatest idea to put them up front, answering all your phones. Okay. Um, and really understanding what their skills and strong points are. Again, what my experience has been in doing this for a lot and hiring easily over 100 VAs is that you've got to be very clear to start off with what roles and tasks, and you got to make sure that they actually have the skill sets to fulfill those. So a good example of this, I've yet to find a really good outgoing VA with great English that loves sales that could also do my bookkeeping. Just doesn't work, right? Like, so again, keep that in mind. Like, it's still the same thing. You got to find people's zone of genius, and a lot of this is how we interview, okay, and how with the questions we ask during the interview processes. And again, thinking about your expectations here. So, one thing that I would strongly encourage you not to do is to think that this person can do everything in your business. Okay, so again, like I said, they may be strong at customer service, they may be strong at sales, or maybe they're good administrative. But a lot of times we put unrealistic expectations and then we double down on that by not giving them clear instructions. So we really set them up for failure, and both sides end up being disappointed, right? So that's something to keep in mind here. And all of this can be prevented in good interviewing strategies and having really clear roles that you want to delegate out. Okay. Um, another couple of things to be aware of. Make sure that the VA that you're hiring is actually tech savvy. All right. I see this a little bit, and I've had a bit of experience it myself where, they're not familiar with certain technology that you're using. And it might take a month or 2 months for them to get up to speed, and you have to really assess if that's worth it for you, in kind of going through that. So a good example of this, I've had an experience where we were hiring a designer for a design build firm, and they had experience using chief architect. All right, but the company that was working with them, they used CAD. Okay, and thought no big deal because they're very, very similar. No big deal. All right, hired them, gave them very little training, and then lo and behold, we're disappointed with the outcome. Okay. And I don't understand why, right? So again, when we get down to it, that was something that should have been more clearly communicated during the interviewing process. And at that point, it would have been a hard no, all right, if that person had not used that software before. Because again, now we're in a situation where there's no way for them to be successful without a great deal of hands-on training and retraining. So again, something to keep in mind there is, make sure that they actually can do those things. So um let's maybe talk about the hiring process. Again, if you guys need further stuff, if you guys are using Pro Hire, we have all of this sort of already built in. But obviously we're going to create a post or an ad. All right. We have to have a pre-screen. All right. So we use the scored application that basically allows us to have a short list of candidates. All right. We will test our skill sets. So we want to make sure that our VA actually possesses the skills. Believe it or not, in other places in the world, they actually lie like here. All right. So anybody had someone come through, give them an application and totally lie on it, not have the skills they said they had? I have it every day, to be honest with you, right? So, the way to stop that is to actually have, to test their skill. All right. So again, when I'm bringing in a VA, for example, we have some tests that we run with them that allows us to see if they actually possess the skills that we're looking for. With a lot of you guys as well, I do it earlier on in the pre-screening application process, but because it is an admin, there are ways to screen a little bit easier there. In terms of the interview, I highly recommend that you're using a scored interview, and that, we're using non-biased, fair, interviewing practice. So again, very similar to what we're doing with ProHire, that we want to make sure that our opinions and, our former experiences don't blind us to what it actually, what that the person's skills may be. Does that make sense? Everybody with me? Okay. The last thing that I highly recommend, and from ProHire we do this as well, is offer a trial period. Okay. We never go straight to making them a full job offer. All right. I don't do this in any role that I'm hiring for. Everybody gets a trial offer. Okay. Why do you think that everyone should get a trial offer? Why do you think that what do you think um what do
Think
you
it
think
may
would
not
have
be
that
the
for?
right fit off the bat, and you can
Right.
exit the agreement quickly.
Absolutely. So now this occurs on both sides, right? So again, I want to give them an opportunity to come in, and if they've presented certain skill sets that I'm looking for and we've agreed to move forward, all right, until I've qualified those skill sets, it's hard to I don't want to feel trapped. They don't want to feel trapped, and we want to be able to shake hands, and if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. All right. So I always recommend that you're being clear in your communication, especially if you're hiring offshore. All right. So we want to be very fair with both sides. Okay. And make sure that, again, if we are bringing them into a situation that they have a good chance of being successful, and that you set it up in a way that allows them to come through and show, what they're capable of doing. And, be prepared. Again, not everybody's going to make it. This is in general, can be a high turnover role, especially when you're first starting out with this. You're going to go through a few, I promise you, before you find the right one. Okay. But it's still worth it. Okay. So, in terms of finding VAs, all right. Oh, sorry. The tools that I recommend that you should have at bare minimum. All right. If we're going to be bringing them in, we want to have at least the calendar booking capabilities. If you're using our CRM, that's perfect. All right. Access to your Gmail, Outlook, right? Ring Central or Grasshopper for your business phone system. Important here. If you guys are still on landlines, that makes it very difficult to answer phones in a foreign country. So I would highly recommend that you consider moving over to a VoIP. There's other big benefits to them as well. They can be linked to the CRMs, and there's I won't get too far into the weeds on that. But ultimately, those are really important if you're going to be having someone, answering calls or setting appointments. Okay. Um, Project management system. So everyone that knows me knows I'm a big fan of ClickUp. I really wouldn't use anything else, but you could use Trello. I've seen some people use it with some success. All right, but we need to be able to have the tasks that you are expecting them to complete very clearly communicated, and an easy way for you guys to know what's been done and what's not been done. All right, so this is vital. You can try it, other ways, but I've yet to see a really great example of someone, besides, doing things manually. Or sorry, not doing things manually, that can, have a great deal of success with their VA. So bare minimum, I would say, a cheap ClickUp account or Trello. It's free, I believe. All right. And we're going to get all those tasks, that you're expecting them to do scheduled out for them. That's my recommendation. The next QuickBooks, all right, if you're getting them to do some bookkeeping, you can adjust QuickBooks, by the way, just everyone kind of cringes when they hear that. You can adjust QuickBooks. So for example, they would only see purchase orders, right? All your reporting, everything else is kept in privacy, or they can only, do invoicing. So you can turn those features on and off in your QuickBooks, and I've never had a personal issue with it. And again, if you're giving them direct access to your QuickBooks. Below that, guys, Jobber, which is a project management system, House Call Pro. I would recommend that if you're going to do that job tread, those are great systems to have your VA actually working on, because it's an interface, it's a intermediate, so they can issue purchase orders, they can do everything you need to do inside of a system which isn't showing them your full financial picture. if that's a concern for you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
As far as like POs and stuff like that, is the fact that they're on different time zones a challenge? Because if they do need to call suppliers in our areas.
Short answer, yes, of course it is. So, but
Hmm.
here's the thing. Again, there's only a couple of places that are really great for hiring, and most of the time they're used to working with North American time zones. Again, I'm clear in the interviewing and in the job description, like what my time zone's going to be. All right.
Yeah,
So, like, they're agreeing in the contract that they're going to be there at a certain time. So, I haven't had a personal issue with it, but I have had, other other clients try it and forget those points and then
yeah.
have that issue.
Okay.
um Again, it's up to you. A lot of these things too, guys, which you may not recognize, is that if you've got that set up in your project management system, ClickUp or whatever, you can actually hire more than one person to do these things. Okay, and in most cases, I recommend you do. If you're really keen on hiring your own VAs and going through this whole process, hire people for specific things. Okay, you will find some services, like let's say you just need design. You just want someone to do your social media. Okay. You can hire them just for that. Don't try and put everything into one VA. It's also dangerous. Okay. So if let's just say you found that VA that could do all those things for you, okay, what happens when they leave? And they do leave frequently. There is a very high turnover rate in these roles, just so you understand. Okay. So from the beginning, we want to think about, you know, keeping ourselves protected and not putting all our eggs in one basket. Okay, that's been my personal experience is I want to hire someone that's really great and specialized in one thing. And if that's all they do, I'm going to negotiate for maybe 4 hours a week. And that's worked out plenty of times for me. If you're hiring someone full time and you want them to do a range, you've got to be prepared to do the training, put in the work, have the right systems so that they're going to be able to produce for you. It on the other side of it, if you bring them into, disorganization, most of the time you're going to be disappointed with what you get back. Okay? So SOPs is one of the biggest things that you're going to have to consider here. Now, I don't mean chat GBT like, you know, bullshit SOP that's generic. Um, Probably what you want to do is actually create looms, right? So if anybody's familiar with Loom, walk through video yourself actually doing it. All right. And then we would create, a step by step. Again, here's lots of video capture. You can use Tango as an SOP creator, but these are hands-on. Like you need to be very thorough in the SOPs you're generating. All right. They can't be generalized. Does that make sense for everybody? Right. So generalized SOPs, really you're just going to confuse the VA. They have to be step by step. And they have to be clear. Again, I use a combination. I never just, if I'm going to do a video, I'll show them how I do it, and then I'm going to give them the step by step as well that they can follow through with. Okay. Another great one is your checklist. So if you're using ClickUp or any project management system, most of them have them. We want to make sure that we have our checklists to make sure that certain things are being done, if there's any specific instructions for it. And then what I like to do with mine is I set up starting with daily tasks, weekly tasks, monthly tasks, quarterly tasks, and I'm going to organize those tasks in there and put them as a reoccurring, task.
Can I ask you a question? As far as
Certainly.
tasks go, like you're explaining, would you recommend like ongoing, how do I say this? Like, would you recommend ongoing tasks that are kind of the same every day, or can you
Yes,
throw
100%.
random stuff at them? Or
No.
are they not good
So
at adapting to quick like things you need on the fly?
So here's the quickest way to lose your VA and to lose to have it be a revolving door. Just throw things at them.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I highly don't recommend that you do that. Now
Mm,
again, as you've built trust and as you've learned to work with your VA, there is a lot of room there. And again,
okay.
depending on the quality that you've hired for, so like if you've hired a $3 VA from the Philippines, and you're expecting somebody that has, all of these skills, good luck, right? You get
Yeah.
what you pay for, right? So,
Yeah.
and again, they disappear, right? There's issues there. They have, power issues. They have, like they have, some places are politically unsafe, so you got to
Mm,
know these things when you're going into it. And one of the biggest things that I see happen, and I don't like personally, is that we're not empathetic to the situation that they're coming from. And a
mhm,
lot of times we treat them unfairly. We wouldn't treat them like a normal employee, and that's a big mistake. Okay. Again, don't don't make the mistake of not trying to make each one of your VAs a true team member, right? We don't want to put them in a silo or make them feel isolated from our company. In fact, you want to do the opposite, right? Some of the best staff I've had are from other countries. I'll never personally go back to hiring administrative staff from Canada. I
mm,
am completely, call me whatever, but I will never ever hire another administrator from Canada. I've had nothing but bad experiences. They've been like very entitled. They're less productive. They're less friendlier. I have,
mhm.
political issues. Like again, there's a bunch of baggage that comes with them that's just unnecessary, right? So, but
Uh,
on the same note, I work very hard on making sure that they feel included and inclusive, and there's no silos going on. And again, you want that to make them a true member of your team, and it's your job to empower your employees and staff, and make sure
mm,
you're giving them pathways to learn and to advance, and not just seeing them as someone you throw tasks at, right?
okay, okay.
So,
So,
yep,
okay. No, just because like my admins now that I have in house is that is just like, look this up, do this, call this person. Like it's
totally
very like just take it off my plate, do like a bunch of do 10 things I'm gonna throw at you today.
right.
So that's what I was wondering is yeah, they're more like project and task based on an ongoing basis. I get it. Yeah.
Right. So now this is where your systems come into play, right? So like again, you can have a repetitive task that has to be done every week at like Tuesday, right? The more
Yeah.
organized you get there, and where I want to kind of emphasize is that you are going to turn over VAs. Like it's just a reality, okay? You're just like in your own business, you're going to turn over staff. What happens when that happens? How quickly do we recover from that?
Yeah, it takes some time for sure.
Right. So, like, I can safely say in a lot of the roles that we design and that we have, like, again, we hire high quality, we bring them into an organized situation where their onboarding is clear and thorough. All right. But if they left, and that would be unfortunate, I have a way of training somebody else up very quickly. So there's no, reciprocal
Mhm.
damage done to to our clients, right?
Yeah, I don't want sorry to off track you. I want to ask you too, like, is there certain countries that you find better? I know there's certain cultures that are very like yes men and they'll just say
Yeah.
yes, yes, even though they don't know what they're doing. They just want to please you, but it's
Right.
just their culture.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up that's actually a big part of this. So understanding culture is super important for this. Okay, so my preference personally is South America. I find that they're very, very close in English, and they're more outgoing. All right,
Yeah.
they're not particularly yes men. I look for people that have some backbone to them, and that will help and problem solve. Now, if you're hiring from the Philippines, you will find that yes, they will often, because that's a part of their culture, a part of who they are, is that they do want to please you. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're using someone in the Philippines, they tend to blend better to behind the scenes administrative tasks. Okay. So I'm not putting them into a position, and maybe you guys know this, maybe you don't, but they don't feel comfortable being on camera a lot. Has been my experience. Like they don't like to, although they're fluent English, they understand everything you're saying to them. Their preference is not to interact that much. Now, there is exceptions, and that's not always the case, but that tends to be my observations. South America, again, good and bad, but typically I would use them in where they fit in best is customer service, sales, things like that. Um, you know, my preference for accounting, all right, would be Indians. Some Philippines are not so bad at it. I have a good accountant bookkeeper that's from the Philippines. He's great. Again, and you can find them across the board. I'm not saying if you're looking at South America, you can still find great accountants. There's just better access to them. And where I find the connection on it is, some cultures are just better. They have it more in their culture to be data driven, for example, right? So if I'm getting computer programming, I'm getting SEO, anything that involves that kind of skill set, I'm going to be looking, probably Indian somewhere in there. All right. Outgoing, customer facing, South American, all right, administrative, internal. Again, kind of a toss up because it's up to you. Much cheaper to get a VA in the Philippines, but also a couple of things to keep in mind is that they often have power outages and they disappear for periods of time and they don't really communicate. So like I've had many of them just disappear, never heard from them again, which I don't know. That can happen anywhere, but they're also, again, they tend to be a lot quieter and don't really voice as much as I'd like them to do, but that's that comes with the territory, right? That make sense? Okay.
Yep, thank
So
you. Yeah.
another thing, guys, is knowing how to pay your VA is super important. Okay. So if you're going to be doing kind of the big platforms as Wise and PayPal, Payoneer, all right, for international payments, keep in mind for my Canadian friends that they will be expected to be paid in US funds. You can negotiate for Canadian, but like most people in the world are still on the US dollar. So you have to factor that into what you're offering. Okay. So again, this can have, and as our Canadian dollar goes up or down, like this does play into what you have to know as your true cost. Okay. Generally you'll want to pay weekly. I found that's kind of that's weekly or bi-weekly, sorry. Bi-weekly is our preference. We do work with everyone that way. It's works out well. Um, and it keeps your fees at a minimal rate. So every time you make a transfer, is relatively the same amount of fee. So again, that's why we moved to a bi-weekly pay rate. Okay. Um, so the other thing here, guys, is I want you to really think about writing simple checklists. So a lot of times, what happens even in our SOPs is we make them overly complicated. Okay, I know I'm certainly guilty of this. All right, but like really, really clear instructions. Remember that in a lot of cases, English isn't their first language. Okay. And if you're going really fast and you're dropping things on them, like they're not picking up because they have to translate that into their language. And there's a lot of times where I've seen clients get frustrated because they think they're missing things, but it's really they need to slow down. And I have this problem, so I know firsthand. Um, and using good checklists for certain tasks. So things like, checking your inbox and responding to emails. Okay. Again, you're going to want to have a process, a procedure for that. All right, to keep things on track. Callback or missed leads, the scheduled jobs. Again, that would be a checklist, what they have to do, what order, all right, what they have to say. Okay. Um, and then getting them to actually send you a daily report. With ClickUp, we have all of our AI built out for it. So it actually, again, we're able to use that to our advantage and creating those reports and showing our clients what we're doing. So we have our ClickUp directly connected to Slack. I'm sure you've all seen it, right? So that you guys know what's being accomplished on a daily basis. So you would want to do something similar to that. Any questions so far, guys? No? Okay. All right. So, here's a little bit more of an advanced thing. So like a lot of you guys will find, and I know it's certainly my experience, so I'll share it with you, is that actually scaling your business using VAs is a strong possibility. So I use VAs for estimating, for bookkeeping, for like every major procedure to the point where We have one office manager that's from Canada here, and she's our controller. She does very, very high level tasks, but everything else is VAs. And I can tell you it is far, far better than when I did have a full office of staff. Okay, so again, from a scalability perspective, totally scalable. All right. I also have, again, specialists, where maybe I couldn't afford, an 80 or $90,000 a year estimator. All right, but I could afford to, train somebody, to do that task for me. All right, and then again, how you compensate them is up to you, but that's worked out very, very well for us. Okay. Um, so, in terms of the order that you want to kind of start off with, and if you're looking to scale this, the first person that you're going to try and hire is your admin or your customer service VA. All right, that's going to be my first hire. All right. And I'm going to make sure that wherever I've decided to hire from, all right. So again, if I'm hiring in the Philippines, I'm going to try and hire other people from the Philippines. I'm going to try and create a community where, again, we're not just people are feeling isolated or like they're in a silo. Okay. Second hire that I'm going to make, social media and marketing VA. These have huge ROIs if you're organized and you're set up to actually get them producing those tasks. My third hire, bookkeeping and invoicing VA. All right. And the fourth, personal assistant, that is like working on your personal tasks. Okay. That's my order. It's up to you how what ones you feel are most necessary to you. And remember, okay, you can have four people that are basically filling, one role, if that makes sense. So the hours would add up to that one single role. Okay.
What do you have the personal assistant do?
So that's a great question. So my email inbox, this is all the like you see all the responses to emails, texts, like scheduling my personal stuff, like being a go-between between me and my wife, like you name it, right? Like a ton of stuff, like my personal stuff and stuff within the business that is again that I'm gonna kind of fire off to them and they're gonna problem solve. A lot of times the personal assistant that's closest to me is going to be managing, the other VAs at a certain point, right? So that's typically how it's been working for me.
So what do you do exactly? Just say, hey, message this client back, say this and this, and then they go do it kind of thing?
No, no, so way more advanced. Well, everybody here knows Claudia, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so she is like my keeper, literally, right? Like without her, I would be a lost soul. So she helps to keep like my schedules all, delegated out. She protects me on my schedules and
Mm.
what I have to do and she knows, what I'm going to allow on my calendar and what I'm not. Again,
Okay.
this becomes a big struggle as you start to grow and scale, right? Like I have 100 people coming at me, only the most important things are getting through to me, right?
Okay.
So just protecting my time, delegating down to everybody else, right? So again, dealing with those, back and forth questions and stuff like that's critical, especially if you've got four, right? Those questions and stuff and Claudia is amazing. She's an all-star. Like she writes SOPs. Like I don't really have to tell her too much. She's
Need to
got I
clone her.
I swear like I've told her my dream was that she could just read my mind and I think she's there like 50% of the time. Like I don't know who I was joking with yesterday, but I showed them even the text like while we were on the phone or while I was on a call with a client, she's messaging me things that I can't forget. I'm like, oh yeah, right? So like again, you want to find someone that's capable of doing those things, and when you do, take good care of them, right? You're not going to find that kind of person as far as my experience goes. Maybe yours is different, but you're not finding that in North America. It's just we we just don't have that anymore, right? People aren't looking to serve people or to help people. Like they're just not they're we're not built that way anymore. I think we're too to say it in the lightest way, I think we're too entitled, right? We've been programmed a certain way and it's unfortunate, but again, you've got to look for people that complement what you're doing and that you can work with really easily. Make sense? Okay. So how many of you out of curiosity that are on the call today, and maybe just throw one in the chat. How many of you are actually considering getting a VA in the near future? Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So then I guess let's talk about taking some actual action steps. If you're hiring them yourself, again, we're a great resource. We have our own VA programs. We've trained lots of VAs. But I want you to kind of take these next steps. The first thing is your job listing. Um, what I would recommend, you guys drop it in the school group or in your Slack channel. Will help you to word that properly. A lot of times, again, we over communicate what we're looking for in our ads, um, and we're not clear enough, and that can attract the wrong type of a VA for you, right? Obviously, creating a short list, having your SOPs ready to go, so knowing exactly what you're going to delegate, understanding how much of that time you're spending on it. And that's the first step, right? If any of you guys do a time audit, it's usually the quickest, easiest way to figure out what you should get off your plate and what you're doing repetitively that you shouldn't be doing. All right. And then, ultimately we want to have an interview script, a scorecard for hiring. All right. And I would highly recommend that you have at least the bare minimum of a test. So again, you can reach out to me. I have, certain tests for certain key skills, where you can make sure that the VA isn't just giving you lip action and telling you yes. You can actually test them on those things before you hire them. And yeah, that's kind of it. So um, I'll make one more suggestion here. If you guys are considering a VA, as you guys know, we hire, train, we're good example of how it works. The benefits to using us and having our team work with you is it's fractional, meaning, like I said, you're not just getting, you might need 10 hours of bookkeeping or 10 hours of social media. All right. Those are things that we can accommodate. So you're not paying one person full time to get, mediocre stuff. We also do all the training and management, right? So we're training them, we're managing them. We just take those things right off your plate. That's a benefit. You don't have to kill yourself. We also give you the SOPs, and if you want your ClickUp process, all that, again, even if it's going to be maybe temporary and not permanent, and you want to hire your own, um, we'll hand over all that stuff for you as well. All right. So again, I don't want anyone to feel like they're trapped with our services. Again, I wouldn't recommend you put all your eggs in one basket. That's why I want to be completely transparent. And again, we're bringing fully trained, on all the systems before they start with you. So that's a decent benefit for you. All right. And then obviously you guys work with our team, so you know what you're getting, right? No surprises. And again, we're not going to make bad hires that are going to cost us time and force us to kind of look away at other options instead of um, you know, what's out there. So I see that probably the most often happens is we've tried to hire someone from the Philippines, it didn't work out, or we've hired a few and it didn't work out, and all of a sudden we've got this bad taste in our mouth, like all VAs are bad. Okay, you hear a lot of complaining about it for people that have tried it on their own, and I completely understand why. Like, I'll be honest with you too. Like, on average, we look at, probably 100 to 150 applications to find one VA. So that is the kind of ratios you're looking at, and you got to be able to sort through those applications and be very, very specific on who you're hiring, just like everything else, right? So there's definitely a strategy to it. Okay. So I've gone ahead, guys, and I've created an SOP for all of these things that we are discussing here, and I'm going to share it with you. Oh, throw this in the chat.
I have a random question. This is kind of like in general for employees. Is there like a personality trait or assessment to basically someone that needs to get tasks accomplished? I don't know how to
100%.
describe this. It's just like personalities that like need to finish their checklist, like have a goal for completion. And then there's other people that
Ooh.
you're like, how is this taking you weeks and weeks and weeks? Like, what are you doing? What
That's
is that called?
Yeah, so there's a number of them. So like the disc, you can start off with disc personality profiles. Those are
Yeah, yeah.
like sort of the top of the line. I use 13, or I use the personalities one. And I use other like actual like technical tests. So like again, you're testing them for Word, you know, Word, you can test them on, certain softwares, stuff like that. But um, personality profiling is probably your first step. All right.
Hmm.
And again, a lot of times what I've found is like as long as you're clear about what the role is going to entail and like you can communicate it, it's pretty easy to get those lower level tasks off your plate. It's when you start to try and expect more, where they're rising up to maybe again do something that you haven't trained them on and you're expecting them to just to know, right? That's where
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I think it's just there is a personality trait where like they get, I don't know how to explain this, like things get done in a timely manner. And I don't know how to explain. Like I've had staff where I can give them like 10 things, it's off their list. And then other staff where it's like I'm chasing them for the
always, yeah.
5 things I gave them. So is it like are they what are I know the dispersonality, I've done those before. Like what is it? Like a who are those people that get tasks done in time?
So
Like
defenders are
defenders?
ones that I particularly prefer. All
High
right. So a
D. Okay.
defender, yeah. Anybody that's in a high C personality type. So like that's why I recommend disc. So like if you're hiring someone strictly for administrative, meaning that they need to be task-based, they're not going to be creative or come up with new things. Like they're just
Hmm.
there, they're they actually get energy from getting stuff done, like what you're
Yeah.
describing. And like that's going to be like more of a defender, administrator type of personality profile. High C is what we would call them in the disc.
So
That's your
high C and high D.
No, high C, just high C.
Oh, just a high C.
High D
Okay.
is dominant. You don't want
Yeah,
dominance.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So, and again, the other thing that if you get hiring more than one that are interacting together, you want to make sure that you're profiling it for team, right?
Okay.
So a good example of this is don't hire two commanders, all right, and then have them, working in the same vicinity, right? You'll
Okay.
have fireworks going off for sure, right? So, and yeah, always personality tests. What I do, just so you guys know, and I'll give everybody this as well, but like when they're coming in, I get them the personality profile for me, and then I have them give me their zone of genius, like what they like to do, what gives them energy, what takes their energy away. That helps
Okay.
tremendously, right? So again, if you're trying to get your outgoing, personal assistant to do bookkeeping, well, you've already set yourself up for failure, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of times it comes down to those kind of things, right?
Is that another test, like their genius, or you just ask them what do you like doing?
No, here, let me show you.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, we have it right in our application process, right?
Okay.
So they would do our personality profile, but then again, I have all the tasks, right? They're going to tell me the zone of genius, zone of
Hmm.
incompetence, all right?
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Okay, I've got one for contractors too, but I do this
Okay.
with every staff member, not even a VA. Like tell me what you're great at doing, okay?
Okay.
And then I know what I can build the tasks around for them that they're going to be most likely to be successful with.
Yeah, I mean, disc is really good too, because like I learned a lot about myself of what I don't do well, but then I'm mindful and then I improve on it. So it's
Yep.
like you'd obviously stretch people a bit into certain things, but not everything. I get that.
Yeah, where disc becomes a bit of like again, it's great like if you haven't done personality profiling and stuff like that, it's a great like, general understanding for it. But if you really need like I'll put it to you like this when you get into companies that are Fortune 500 and stuff, like their profiling is so much more specific. And like there's different personality tests that you can do that really help you to understand who that person is and like what they're really like skilled at. Like a lot of times when people take these things, they learn stuff about themselves, right? If you want to be on top of this, again, I wouldn't, disc is very broad and wide. Like I said, I use the personalities profile one. It works a lot
Okay.
better for us.
Personalities
Here, no,
profile.
I'll give you guys the link for it. Hold on. And then we got to talk about one more thing. I'm going to share the most important resource to you guys. One thing that I cannot stand and that I won't tolerate from any client or any customer, and that I'm enormously protective of, all right, is when you cross that line of, seeing your VA or your assistant as master slave. Okay. And I have seen this and I call it out when I see it. All right. You got to remember that these are equal members on your team. Again, if you treat them as such and you treat them fairly and you work hard to make sure there's no barriers or silos, okay, you're going to get huge, amazing results and everyone's going to be happy. All right. But remember, everyone has their own problems and own challenges. And sometimes with the language barriers, and sometimes I don't know what it is, but I've seen, abusive behavior take place. I won't personally tolerate it. Like, again, if you're not willing to treat them as an equal member in your team, I'm probably not even going to work with you, right? So, um, I created a way of also being able to show them that you appreciate them because a lot of times owners were busy, right? And stuff happens, and it's easy to kind of take and direct that negative attention towards the person that doesn't say the most. And I'm not saying anyone here does it, but I'm going to quickly give you guys all of this document, and I want you to keep this in mind for your own staff and for your leadership. All right, and it's called "Don't Be a Prick." Okay. And what prick means is pressure. All right. So constantly pushing your team to the brink of, unrealistic deadlines, expectations, throwing things at them last minute, not explaining yourself, not, and then, instead of taking accountability for yourself, throw it back at them as it being their fault. Okay. Again, this is a deal breaker for us if we see it. All right. Recognition is a huge part. And anybody managing staff, it doesn't matter where they're from. All right. We have to, even when things aren't going well, we have to stop and take recognition of who is actually there helping. Right. Failing to acknowledge your team and hard work and achievements, it's demotivating. They disengage, and again, you will get quiet quitting very quickly, especially certain parts of where you're hiring from. And this is oftentimes where owners see the disappearing act occur. All right. So again, be aware of these things. Make sure that you have a system for making people feel welcomed and included. All right. Isolation is another one that like I've been saying all along, we don't operate in silos. Okay. You should be inviting the team meetings, team events, treating them, as an equal member of your team. If you're going to do isolation, again, if you're just trying to isolate and get certain things done, you may be able to find someone that does that, but oftentimes that's a short-term arrangement, and again, it's not gonna lead to a long-term relationship with someone that can actually help your team grow. Okay. Criticism. All right. So again, guys, remember something very importantly, just because you're from North America, right, where criticism is absorbed differently, okay, in other countries, in other places, they take that stuff differently, okay, and it's up to you to understand that, okay, so certain types of criticism, certain types of feedback, although you may think is being constructive, is actually being, is being taken differently, and this can be for a number of reasons. This can be, sometimes religious, sometimes it can be cultural. Okay. So be very careful with how we're criticizing, and that if we are adding feedback and criticism, we're doing it in a supportive, positive way, and we're coming to the table with solutions and ways for them to improve. Okay. So I'm not saying you can't, have constructive conversations, but there's a line that gets crossed. All right. And it's where it's just pure criticism without anything to actually help them get better or to improve. Okay. And then this is, my all-time biggest pet peeve. All right. Everybody here can be kind. All right. No one has to be a dick or an asshole all the time. All right. I get we're all in stressful situations, but if you find yourself taking your frustration out on, the person that's considered lower on the totem pole, all right, that you got to remember they're going home, feeling that, and it's not acceptable, right? We've got to work really hard on just being generally kind to everyone around us, and you're going to see a huge, reciprocal, stuff back, as well as being empathetic. Okay. Remember, they're not in the same living conditions. They don't have some of the same opportunities we've had. All right. And again, we don't want to overlook those. We have to be empathetic. A good example of this is, recently Venezuela had, some political turbulence. Okay. And a lot of my staff were very, very concerned. And this is big things going on in their lives. Things that if it happened here, like we would think the world was ending. Okay. They live in that every single day. So, I want you to understand that, and you have to be empathetic towards it. Okay. You have to, you know, remove just what you need from it, and again, try to connect with them, because they're in situations I would never wish on anybody here. Okay. So again, a lot goes a long way with just generally being a kind. All right. This resource is really good in terms of, again, how to get them to buy in, and the little things we can do. So hopefully it's useful for anyone considering going down this pathway. Even if you're working with us, I'm still going to insist on it. This is again, the more you're aware, the less mistakes get made, and again, at the end of the day, it works out very good for everybody, and we all want to win-win, right? We all want to win-win from this. So throw that in our chat. Okay. And then I'm going to give you guys our application. Give me one sec. Any questions, by the way, guys? Anything that you're curious about or want to know? I mean, now's a great time to ask.
In general, how long does this take to do your first VA to get them? 3 months to get
Again,
a good result, or
all depends on you. So like I'm personally think I get results day one, myself personally, right? And then, we're very quick on onboarding and, our process. But yeah, like again, it depends on, what the role is. If you're just doing general admin, you're going to see results pretty quickly if you're organized and that you've delegated properly. For something more advanced like estimating and stuff like that, yeah, that's gonna, you're gonna follow about a 90-day turnaround for that. That was my experience. So somebody doing sophisticated, stuff. The cool thing is we're in a global hiring market. Okay. You're not bound, and like it goes on beyond just VA skills. You got to understand, you can hire somebody in another country that, has the equivalent to being a engineer here. Okay, even above that, right? They have very high skill level. There's lots of countries that provide university education superior to ours here, all right, that are in a worse off position than us. All right. Now you can hire skills from there. You can hire, great estimators, guys that have an enormous amount of experience. All right. We have to kind of keep in mind is that training and onboarding, what you expect in getting them adjusted to, how your business works, right? So,
yeah.
yeah.
So, like, to me, for myself personally, I waste way too much time on emails.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a great one to delegate.
I'd rather that be gone, like that kind of a thing.
Easy
And then
peasy,
the other
right?
thing I think moving forward would be something where you could just hand certain tasks off to, or even looking down the road, like a CSR thing, which with the VoIP phone would be a very simple thing to do. So you could take more calls, handle more people, book more things.
Yep. Yep. So again, it starts with your system. So like how you set them up is ultimately how things will go. So like I was saying to you before, like we onboard everybody the same way. Our tasks are broken down, right? We have our SOPs. I'll bring in the onboarding thing here, right?
Would you
So
keep those two roles separate,
what's
or
that?
could you combine them under one person?
What do you mean for?
Personal assistant versus the CSR role.
You would keep those separate.
Okay.
I wouldn't have my CSR being like if you're gonna hire that, but remember, you can hire fractionally, right? So again, maybe you only have 4 hours of one thing. Okay, that's fine. Like there's lots of opportunity out there where someone would fill in for 4 hours. Okay, so don't feel like you have to hire one person to do all the things. Hire
Mhm,
specialists. Hire
mhm,
people for what they're great at doing, not try to get everything in on top of them. Okay?
mhm, mhm,
So yeah, once again, I mean, there's a million ways to skin a cat. We found that the best way is just like in general having everything documented out. Like, we're shooting Loom videos, like we go thoroughly through it because then it doesn't no matter what, even if you turn someone over, you're not feeling that void, right?
mhm,
So yeah, personal assistant's a great one to start with. And again, I don't think, most of us need a full-time one.
mhm.
I would consider more on the fractional side, and getting some of these things off your plate. If anybody wants to have a chat or a conversation with me, we can certainly get you set up with those SOPs, those tasks. If you're outsourcing, if you want to use our in-house staff, I mean, you're always welcome. Either way, whatever direction you're going, we'll support you on. And yeah, any of these kind of questions, hopefully this got the juices flowing and it got some ideas out there. And it's helpful.
I got another
I had one.
question. How
Sure.
Sure.
would you
Sure.
hire if you need help with SOPs? Like that's such a daunting task to me. Because I got so
So
many things going
here's
on.
now here's my personal opinion on it. Y- if you're hiring someone to do what's in your head, all right, it's going to take 3 to 4 times longer. Okay. So if you're set up, like the first stage of all of this is like go for the simple things. Okay. Don't get into the complex because guys, if you struggle managing your own team, add a couple of VAs to that and you're really like with no system, no process, like it gets ugly quick, right? So again, come into this with simple expectations and simple like results that you want to get. Let's focus on the hours. So like again, how much time are we spending answering phones? How much time are we spending managing our calendar? Like those 6 things alone, most of you are 10 to 15 hours a week on, I almost promise. That's one person can do all those things very easily for you, kind of operate in the background. And then if it works out for you, then we can start to advance with more complicated SOPs. That person may be able to be trained to write them. Like it takes time, right? But if you're thinking of them just instantly starting and writing SOPs, that's unrealistic. It won't happen. Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Unrel I had a question about if you're setting up down the road for future for Google, the
Hmm.
Google Drive that I have now, do I
Yeah.
have to go to the Google Plus or something else to to start? I want to back up my QBO, and I can
Okay.
back it up to a Google Drive. But if I'm going to have a Google Drive for the business, am I going to be using the same drive that I'm using right now
No,
with
you'd have to go to the business one. So there's
the
the
business
one
one?
for,
Okay.
yeah, so that you're connecting all of them. So yeah, you would use a
What's that
business.
called? Do you know?
Oh, yeah,
Or
good
should I
question. Here it is.
send that out to Manchu? I don't
No, no,
remember.
so I'll tell you what it's called.
And then because I want to get that set up so I can start doing backups as of tomorrow.
Yeah. I believe it's called Google Business Platform. Wait a second.
Google Workspace, maybe?
Yeah, Google Business Workspace or something like that. Business or workspaces. I should know this, honestly.
Wasn't a
Google
test question.
Workspace.
Google Workspace? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Google Workspace, secure online product. Okay, yeah, that's it. So here's the link for it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Talk to Himashu about this. Because we do have through our vendors, we can get it. We get them much cheaper because they're like they can be 28 or
Oh,
30 bucks a user. Himashu figured out how we got it through oh that the server that we use. I can't remember the name. Bluehost. You have Bluehost too.
yes, I do.
Um, so we can get it for like 10 or 12 bucks a user.
Wow.
Okay, so just talk to Himashu because we had to figure that out ourselves.
Okay. Okay.
So he'll guide you which one to go to.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, you want to pay about 10 or 12 bucks. Don't if you got the $30 per user one, that's you've overpaid for it.
Okay.
That's like the full retail.
Okay.
Okay.
That works.
All right.
This is really fun. I'm enjoying this a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So any other questions, guys? Any other concerns? No? All right. Everyone have a wonderful day. We'll talk soon. Bye.
You too. See ya.